Good evening, everybody. Sorry we're a few minutes late. Our executive session went a little bit longer, but our executive session did begin at 6 p.m. on June 6th of 2022 here in Gray Street. The purpose of that meeting was to discuss personnel, litigation, miscellaneous, and old business matters. That meeting had been advertised and was compliant with the Open Public Meeting Act and NJSA 10:4-6, which is also known as Sunshine Law. The matters discussed will be made public when confidentiality is no longer required, and formal action pursuant to said discussion shall take place only at a meeting to which the public will be invited. We are now set to begin our public conference meeting on June 6, 2022 at approximately 7:05 p.m. here in the Harrison Conference Room. The Caldwell-West Caldwell Board of Education public conference meeting is compliant with the Open Public Meeting Act and NJSA 10:4-6, which is also known as Sunshine Law. Notices have been sent to the Progress Caldwell, New Jersey, the Star Ledger, Newark, New Jersey, Tap Into West Essex, and notices also have been posted at the Board of Education Business Office here in the Harrison School on Gray Street in West Caldwell, and have been delivered to the clerks of both Caldwell and West Caldwell for posting. Brian, can I ask you to take the roll, please?
Yes. Mr. Diambola.
Here.
Mr. Elko.
Here.
Ms. Getty.
Here.
Ms. Grasso.
Here.
Mr. Cipoletti.
Here.
So we have 5 present, no absences. We have a quorum.
Great, thank you. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Brian, any communications to share this evening?
None.
All right. Dr. Conklin, Superintendent's report.
Yes, if I could have Mr. Ryan Healy and Chelsea Rudin to come up to the podium, please. If you guys could just say what houses you're from. They didn't write that in the email, so that'd be helpful if everybody know.
I'm Ryan Healy. I'm from the House of Responsibility.
And I'm Chelsea. It's actually pronounced Rudin, not Rudin. Sorry.
Rudin. Rudin?
It's Rudin.
I
not
apologize.
Rudin.
Thank you for the correction.
And I'm the House Leader of Endurance. We're here once again to talk to you about what has happened at GCMS in this past month, I guess. So first of all, on May 26, 2022, Grover Cleveland Middle School had their first field day in nearly 3 years at this point. Field day consisted of many different activities. Among these were games such as kickball, foursquare, spikeball, and indoor team building activities. People were grouped into teams based on their house, with the ultimate goal being to win as many games as possible. Houses were awarded points accordingly for each win. At the end of the day, the House of Courage won field day overall. Currently, the top 3 houses as far as standings go are leadership in 3rd, citizenship in 2nd, and endurance in 1st. Furthermore, this past weekend, from Friday, May 3rd to Sunday, May 5th, GCMS performed Shrek Jr. the Musical. Over the course of 3 days, there were 4 total performances, 1 on Friday, 2 on Saturday, and 1 on Sunday. As a part of the crew myself, it is clear that everyone involved was truly ecstatic about being a member of this group, no matter the job, whether acting or working behind the scenes. The musical presented a great opportunity for people who might never interact to do so and form friendships that many hold dear now following the conclusion of our performances. In addition, it provided a great creative outlet for us and was generally very exciting and fun.
On June 1st, we had an advisory lesson on what is happiness. This lesson focused on learning the skills to maintain happiness and wellness. On June 15th, we will focus on mental health awareness. Students will learn ways to ask for help and the people they should consider reaching out to. Project Unified. This year-long initiative to promote community and inclusion for all students at GCMS hosted several events this year. Our June event was held on Friday, June 3rd, from 3 to 5 p.m. A game truck came to GCMS and several students participated in video gaming. Students played together and everyone had a great time. Career Day. Next week, during 8th grade science class, students will hear presentations from friends and family members who are occupied in the field of anything related to science. This includes, but is not limited to, surgeons, doctors, scientists, and engineers. The presenters will be presenting via Zoom. Topics the presenters will be talking about is starting salary, the schooling they went through to get to where they are now, and what they do.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Professor Lavin. On behalf of the board, I'd like to congratulate you for being recognized as the 2022 Association of Italian American Educators Teacher Fellowship Award. So congratulations, that's awesome. I wish I could personally say I know exactly what that was, but maybe you could explain how you won the award and why you're the recipient this year.
Absolutely. Something I'm still trying to figure out myself, but absolutely. The award was given me on May the 13th at the Italian Consulate in New York City. And basically it is a two-part award, and part of it was monetary, and the other part is the opportunity to teach at the university in Pisa at some time for about a week to teach students that are both traveling to Pisa and also native students that are there. So it's quite a wonderful opportunity to teach Italian language and culture and to kind of bridge, you know, the big ocean in between Italy and the United States. As to when I will go to Pisa, I'm not too sure, but I know that I do have some people waiting with bated breath to come along with me. I did want to give a word of thanks, though, Dr. Conklin, to yourself, to the Board of Education, in recognizing the value of teaching a world language. And in doing so, and being able to teach our children how to see the world through a different lens, which I truly believe is a quality and an aspect that I believe that we all need today. A special thanks also to my principal, Mr. Devlin, who's not here right now, but he took a chance on me on a kid fresh out of college 5 years ago and gave me my first job at Caldwell as a maternity leave replacement. And I was able to come back, fortunately, for a full-time Italian tenure track position, for which I'm very, very grateful. Miss Lisa Manfrey, the other Italian teacher in the district, I'd be nothing if it wasn't for you, and it's very true. It's very true. Lisa not only keeps me in line, but we are the perfect frickin' frack, yin and yang, and make sure that I'm on the straight and narrow, because once again, I'll be a different teacher, I'm sure, 5 years from now than I was when I first started. Dr. Trausser, World Language Department, all my other colleagues, but above all, the students and parents here of Caldwell and West Caldwell. I feel like I fit like a glove. It's like a family. I can't tell you how many times, how many children have brought me either a salami that they made at home with the grandparents or tiramisu or any kind of Italian delicacy. And really, truly, it is a truly unique place. I'm very grateful, and I hope to make this, obviously, my forever home. Once again, very grateful to all of you for recognizing me, for recognizing this award. But really, it would not be possible without the students, parents, teachers, administrators of Caldwell-West Caldwell, for whom I'm eternally grateful. So thank you very much once again.
You're welcome.
Nice.
Mind if we take a 2-minute break?
Yes.
Can I take a picture with the teacher? And you come? Of course. You can take a picture with the board? Thank you so much.
Good. Thank you, Dr. Conklin. From a President's report, next week we'll be recognizing our retirees as well as staff milestones for years of service recognition. One other thing we'd like to mention tonight is to congratulate the team responsible for Shrek the Musical. Dr. Conklin earlier tonight mentioned that he's been probably to 100 or so performances over his...
More than that with my children.
With your children's careers.
And one of them is in one, so I'd multiply that by 4 a year, and they're older than high school.
Okay, so he's been to many, and his comment to us this evening was this was probably one of the best that he's ever seen. So congratulations to the team responsible for that, and obviously to the cast members. And now we're going to move into approval of minutes will be next week. We're going to go into public comments on agenda items and agenda items only at this time, if you could. And public participation shall be governed by the following. Participants must be recognized by the presiding officer and must preface their comments by an announcement of their name and address. Statements are to be limited to 3 minutes duration and may only address items on the agenda at this particular time. Participants may speak no more than once on the same topic until all others who wish to speak on that topic have been heard, and all statements shall be directed to the presiding officer. So if anyone has any comments on the agenda, please come up now.
Are there any more copies of the agenda? There's maybe a couple in the back there. Are there?
There should be some on the table walking in, I hope. Okay, with that being said, we'll move on. If you do have questions, just bring them in towards the end after you get a chance to look at it, okay? Okay, committee reports. I think we have one report this evening.
Yep,
Chris?
we have the Curriculum and Technology Committee report, which took place on May 22nd. Myself, Ms. Fisher, Ms. Jacobs, Ms. Jones, and Dr. Conklin were in attendance. We talked about technology. Dr. Conklin reviewed policy revisions for technology, electronic communications, recording devices, as well as smartwatches. In addition, based on teacher requests, we are expanding the use of Promethean boards as an instructional tool. We talked about different courses, clubs, job descriptions. We then talked about the JCHS, the One Book, One School. Ms. Fisher shared the proposed text of How to Be a Good Creature, a memoir on 13 Animals by Cy Montgomery. We then talked about strategic planning. We're nearing the year of we're nearing the end of the first year of a 5-year strategic plan. The presentation will be shared on June 13th board meeting. We already begun starting the talks about the next year's strategic planning goals, which are going to include elementary math goals. We're continuing to align our resources, PD, and support our strategic goals. Principals shared a staff presentation about next year's professional development plan. And then also this summer teachers will be spending time drafting and revising BOE approval of the following curricula: health and PE, math, elementary assessment, algebra 1, geometry, elementary social studies, ESL, K-5 curriculum writing, K-8 GAP curriculum writing, world cultures, executive functioning, grade 6 cycle course, and English selective. And that's what we talked about on our meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Bless you.
You're welcome.
And next week, we'll have a committee report on finance and technology, correct? Okay.
Facilities, financial facilities.
Okay, if not any other questions, we're going to move into opening it up for questions on anything. And sir, if you did have a moment to look at the agenda, you have any questions, you bring those up now. We will follow the same rules. So any questions, please come up to the mic. And public participation shall be governed by the following. Participants must be recognized by the presiding officer and must preface their comments by an announcement of their name and address. Statements are to be limited to 3 minutes in duration. Participants may speak no more than once on the same topic until all others who wish to speak on that topic have been heard, and all statements shall be directed to the presiding officer. So if there are any questions or comments, please feel free to come up to the podium. Yes.
I think you're all surprised to see me. I'm going to start with 2 apologies. One, right when I'm done speaking, I am going to leave, and I don't mean to be disrespectful to anyone else. This is my son's tennis dinner. He's getting his final senior varsity letter, and I'm missing it to be here, which makes me sad. So I'm going to run, but this, I think what I need to say here needs to be said. And 2, I apologize that I'm reading from my notes. This is kind of an emotional issue for me. I want to be brief, but I don't want to forget anything. My name is Madeline Brown. I live at 13 Birkendean Road in Caldwell, and I'm here to discuss the vandalism incident that took place at the middle school this week. I do have a question that we can maybe answer before I'm done. but I also have many comments about it. So my question is regarding the timeline, and I'm not really even thinking about the incident that followed on Friday, but on Thursday, an initial letter went out that mentioned what happened somewhat. It had no mention of contacting authorities at all. In fact, the letter asked parents and students to really report on what they know. So I want to know if the police, if authorities were contacted before then. I had spoken to the police personally on Friday morning and was told at 7 o'clock Friday morning by the Caldwell liaison that they had not heard anything from the school. So I don't know if there was a miscommunication there. I'm hoping truly that there was, but I am looking for some clarity on that. You've all seen me speak before. I've lived in this town my whole life. We have had anti-Semitic incidences in this town. We had it when I was in high school. I understand a few years ago there was something at Lincoln School. So my concern right now is not just for the anti-Semitic graffiti, but also for the follow-up. I'm very disappointed in the way the district handled the initial communication. The letter that came home never mentioned the word anti-Semitic. It used the language hurtful comments. To the Jewish community, the display of swastikas and other hate speech is not just hurtful, but scary, terrifying. And another reason why I believe the police should have been involved from the beginning. In that initial communication, the word hate was never even used. It appeared that the administration was much more concerned about the vandalism that occurred than the content of the vandalism. A quote from the letter, which hopefully by now you've all seen it, was, this is towards the end, "We just want to put a stop to the vandalizing of our beautiful school building." This was almost the exact same letter that was forwarded to me over the weekend after some incident occurred in the girls' bathroom in January. Word for word, including the same grammar mistake that was sent out in January. As far as I can tell, that letter had a follow-up that used the word heinous. So whatever happened in the girls' bathroom was more heinous than what happened in this incident. And I don't know what happened in the girls' bathroom. Perhaps that was, and perhaps that was covered up as well. But right now, the message that this is sending to the Jewish community and the community as a whole is very concerning. Particularly in this environment, we're pushing hate speech under the rug, and I would expect better. The fact that the entire school was not notified, simply just 6th grade boys. So probably approximately 80% of the school did not even know about this from the district. I understand after speaking with the administration, there was a very strong belief that this could only have been done by a 6th grade boy. Rumor has it, and I don't know the facts either, that that's not the case. It's hard to me to think that only a 6th grade boy could have had access to that bathroom and only a 6th grade boy could have done this. When I spoke to Mr. Bertolo Friday morning, he did return my call. We spoke about the letter, and his question to me, and so I'm presenting it to you, was how I think he should handle this the next time this happens. I certainly take offense with the next time this happens, but as I mentioned before, it has happened before and it will surely happen again. And so we do need some kind of procedure in place for the next time this happens, so that the follow-up is not as hurtful as the crime. I believe, after speaking with Mr. Bertolo, that some sensitivity training is needed to administration, possibly to teachers. My son is a 6th grader. He had one teacher that addressed this wonderfully. I reached out to her because only one teacher did. I did not know if it was a directive that they shouldn't, so I didn't know if I should mention her name or not, but she was wonderful. He came to school upset. She was able to discuss it in their class and really put it in perspective and use the proper terminology of hate speech and crime and anti-Semitism. So my question, again, my thanks to Dr. Conklin for your follow-up letter, which I think was worded in a way that the district could be proud of, taking a much stronger stance. And then my question remains about just the timeline with contacting authorities. Thank you.
So I could let you know that the authorities were not contacted about this incident on Thursday. There was another incident that they were contacted on about Thursday that was isolated from this incident, but the phone call was made at 6 o'clock in the morning to an investigator. It wouldn't have been the people you called. They may not have been aware of that, but they did make a phone call around 6 o'clock in the morning on Friday, and around 9 o'clock on the morning on Friday, I called the prosecutor's office as well to report the incident.
Okay.
So there was a phone, but it did not happen on Thursday.
Okay.
It should have, but it did not.
Okay. And then we're getting dribs and drabs about whatever happened Friday. And again, I know we're researching or whatever, so hopefully we'll get a little bit more information about that, because we're still not aware if these two things are connected or not connected, and, you know.
I can't really discuss student
Okay.
matters. They're all related to student matters. I can report that any student or students involved in the situation will not be back at the school for the remainder of the school year.
Okay, so particularly on June 13th.
They will not be back in school
and
for the
there'll be,
remainder of
you
the
know,
school year.
That was the follow-up to what happened Thursday, so it was all a little.
I can't really go into the details.
Right,
I can
no, I
only tell you
understand
that
that.
student or students involved in this particular situation will not be back in school for the remainder of the school year.
Okay, all right. Thank you, and again, I apologize for going, but I'm trying to get to.
Enjoy.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ava Kaplan. My daughter's last name is Rosa. I'm at 138 Ravine Avenue. And also my daughter goes to GCMS. I also wanted to mirror exactly what she said. A couple things to add to that. I don't think we should be calling it vandalism at all. It's a hate crime that was expressed in vandalism. It's not the same thing. Vandalism is knocking down a mailbox. Once you do something like this, it's a hate crime. And I am Jewish, but I don't just take it as offense to a Jewish community, but to our whole community at large. The second thing is, obviously, I have the utmost respect for privacy, and all students, whether they're involved or not, should have that. My concern is for the safety of our children, because even though this student or these students shall not be allowed back in school for the rest of the year, how can we be assured? What are the steps that are being taken now? Because even though someone's not officially allowed back in school, it's a beautiful old building. We all know how old buildings do not have metal detectors, so on and so forth. My stepsons actually are from Parkland, Florida, and we're in Parkland when the shootings happened, so this is a very sensitive issue, and I come from a place of knowing what things can escalate to. One of my concerns is not just do we have appropriate and enough police involvement, but also mental health issues, not just for the student or students involved, because this isn't just a hate crime. If children are doing this, they have mental health issues. That's the bottom line. But also for our children who are coming home, by the way, with more information. I mean, really, we should just put them all on a task force, because that's how you can find anything out. With more information than any of us could ever garner. So I really think, I don't think it was handled well, but I do believe in moving forward and learning from this. But I think that the students are speaking about it enough that a letter home, even though I think it was very well worded by Dr. Conklin, is not enough. I think there needs to be an assembly or a discussion with the students, not just at that school, but all of the schools. And there needs to be a really strong learning curve that this is not okay going forward. And my bigger concern than the hate crime, than the vandalism, is this child or children, do they have mental health issues that's going to play out, as unfortunately we have seen in so many places in the country, and my family has been directly involved in.
Again, I can't discuss any individual student.
No, I just wanted, what's the police presence going to be?
The police are involved in the morning and afternoon dismissal, and they are handling the investigation. Once police are involved, they handle the investigation. We don't do anything but give them information.
But they will be at the school every day?
According to my last conversation, there'll be one available during drop-off and pickup, and they will be going around the school throughout the day. They're not going to be in the school now.
We're not going to have.
Not in the school. We don't have police officers patrolling the school now.
I mean, you don't think, given what happened, that might not be a good idea for the
Again,
rest of
I
the
can't discuss the specifics of what happened or what was said or what the rumors are, as opposed to what really happened. So, but they're, at this point, the students or students that are involved in this are not going to be back at the school.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Danya Casa, 14 Aldham Circle. My daughter's a 7th grader at GCMS as well, and I have a daughter in 3rd grade at Jefferson. Just to follow up what both of these ladies just said, I think sensitivity training is definitely in order for the teachers, for the administration. Parents were not given an opportunity to have this conversation with their children because we knew nothing about it. I am now a person that's regularly on Facebook. I didn't know about it until it was brought to my attention. And by that day, another school day had passed, and my daughter went to school not knowing what was going on. That's not fair. We should have been given the opportunity to have these conversations with our children if we so chose. I feel like something needs to be done at the school level. This needs to be addressed, whether in its assembly. My daughter suggested portion of the social studies class, portion of the advisory class, something. But this needs to be a topic. This needs to be discussed. We need to get the word of kindness out and not hate. This was hate, and this needed to be put out to the public as hate. And this is what we need to be talking about with our children. We need to teach them better. This is our next generation. So I just ask that some sort of training get involved with these teachers, with administration, with anything, so we can get the right word across our children. They are our next generation.
The 6th, 7th grade had a training today at the school, and 8th graders planned one tomorrow. So they did react to it, and there was training for 6th grade and 7th graders today in the building, and there'll be one for tomorrow for 8th graders.
With the classes?
Specifically, it was all the 6th grade, all the 7th grade, all the 8th grade.
Kids are in 7th grade. Nobody was staying after school.
No, it wasn't after school.
It was during school?
It was supposed to be during school today.
Oh, yeah, my daughter didn't mention anything to me. I really haven't had a chance to talk to her yet, but I will bring it up.
Again, I could have read the email wrong, but maybe it's tomorrow. Let me just check my email. I'm not being rude, I just want to check.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak here today. I reiterate what everyone else has said so far. My name is Jonathan Goodgold, 63 Orton Road. I have a daughter in 7th grade at Grover Cleveland. I have 2 4th graders at Wilson. Anti-Semitism is a big, big deal to my family. Much of my family and my wife's family were wiped out in Europe with the Holocaust. In the past week or so, we've had at least 3 incidences of anti-Semitism at the middle school. The most concerning of which is the threat made by a student that on June 13th, something's going to happen at the middle school. We have been informed that the police are involved, but what is the plan to keep kids safe? We haven't been told anything. What is the plan to prevent this incident from occurring? We have not been told anything. We are not being told anything concrete or specific, or even general for that matter. The administration cannot ignore the parents or the safety of our children. The administration needs to be proactive, transparent, and open with the parents. The safety of our children are at stake here. This is not a joke, this is not a game. The safety of our children are at stake, and we don't know anything that's going on. And that needs to change now.
Hello, thank you for allowing me to speak. My name's Harris Padvi. I live at 17 Sunny Terrace. I guess I've been involved in this community probably for over 50 years. I have a daughter that graduated James Caldwell High School. She's now a senior in college. My son is a 7th grader at Grover Cleveland. My daughter is a 3rd grader at Wilson School. I apologize if I repeat what other people have said, but I want to echo all their comments. 2 weeks ago, my son Daniel had his bar mitzvah. One of my friends was there. While he loved the ceremony, the thing that stuck out to him most was the 3 security guards that were outside our temple. It's sad that we live in a world where in our place of worship and our schools, we have to have security. My concern here is what is being done to educate the students and community going forward so this doesn't happen again. My own experience with this district and the communications has not been good. And this incident proved the same thing. The first communication focused on vandalism. The second communication, while it correctly addressed that we don't tolerate hate and what the punishment is, nothing has addressed what we're going to do going forward, how we're going to educate people. The only way my son found out about this was from my wife and I. He had no idea what was going on. when I told him about this, he now feels unsafe. I'm sure he's not the only one. I want to know, and I think the community wants to know, what we're going to do going forward. Thank you.
So just to follow up, I did get text messages from the principal, and 6th and 7th grade classes did a lesson today on anti-Semitism and community building, and 8th grade will do the same lesson tomorrow. So I don't know what class that was in, but they did have lessons today.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Hi, my name's Stuart Hacker. I live at 20 Cedars Road. And so much has been said very well already. I think what I want to reinforce is a couple things. One, we know this is not an incident that just occurred last week. My son is Maxwell Hacker, who had a boy come up to him and say, "I love Adolf Hitler and I hope you die," just 3 weeks ago. The response by the school was to just ask the boy to write us a letter, which was about 4 sentences long. It's probably not the most way or the best way that should have been handled. And so I believe the term was that Mr. Bartello needs probably some support, and I think that's probably a good idea. I also understand that we've also heard that potentially an assembly could be a strong idea. You've got obviously some very committed parents here today who would be happy to connect you to a number of resources in the area. The ADL, you've got a synagogue 2 steps away from the middle school, who I know I've spoken to personally, would be happy to come in, because I understand you wanted to act quickly in some ways, so you've punished this child. He's 13, 12, 14. He doesn't know anything about the world yet. So it's an opportunity for us to truly educate. And so the reason why we are not doing an assembly and hoping this might ride out until the end of the year is abhorrent. This is an opportunity to really show yourselves as leaders and act quickly. So I do hope more than just training comes, because I did hear about the social studies event, or something was being taught in social studies event, and my son it didn't even connect the dots that well. And so obviously it's not resonating, but what is a pattern of hatred. And I hope it's just because it's misunderstanding. I have to believe it's misunderstanding, instead of someone who wants to kill, because that is, as you heard from other parents, their fear, as well as my own. So please, think about doing an assembly before the end of the year. I think it will serve us all very well. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Joseph Pagano. I live at 71 Park Ave in Caldwell. Everybody's spoken much better than I am. I have nothing prepared. The few things I would like to say is, has anybody reached out to any other areas, any other towns who've gone through this? Since you shouldn't be making this up as we go along, there should be some contingency plan for what to do. That's something, just advice. The second thing I want to say is, I'm very concerned about the next few weeks, all right? I'm concerned with the 13th, the 12th, the 11th, the 10th, the 19th. I'm very concerned about something happening on those dates. So far, all I've heard is that a policeman's going to be in the morning and the afternoon and maybe drive around. That's kind of unacceptable to me right now, especially with what's going on in the news. I'd like to hear something about what else could be done, what other people are doing. I'm not saying you have to have cops all around, but are the doors being locked? Is there no way for somebody to get in there? Does this kid know somebody else? Is there something you're not thinking about? Because I hope you are thinking about it. Because if something happens, I'm telling you, it's not going to be nice. That's the only thing I got. I care about the next 2 weeks. Next semester, September, this kid's going to be back in school, I'm sure. He's not going to learn, because we all know that this comes from the parents. Right? In the absence of knowledge, people will make it up. You didn't tell people, and now everybody's firestorming you. That's what I got to say about this. What these people are saying, this is way more personal to them. What I care about is violence. I do not want to see it. I don't want to be in that situation. I don't want to be on the news. Because I can guarantee I will be the guy who's screaming like bloody hell if something comes down on this town. Okay? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Alexis Martin. I live at 43 Johnson. I have a 7th grader in the middle school and a 4th grader at Wilson. I wasn't planning on saying anything today. I just sort of wanted to be here to support, so if my thoughts are a little scattered, my apologies. I just want to point out that we're talking about lessons and teaching the kids and teaching sensitivity training. My understanding is that they were in the middle of a unit about World War II and the Holocaust. So whatever that curriculum looks like, it is not working, right? Like if they just learned about the Holocaust and the student's response is a swastika, like there's something wrong with the learning process there. I agree with, this stems from the parents and the conversation. I'm newish to town, and it just feels like the whole town, and obviously that's not your jurisdiction, but like we all need some training, clearly. Like if this is the kind of vitriol that's going into the schools, I imagine it's going on at home. So, I don't know, it needs to be bigger than just us. It feels like it needs to be bigger. As far as the what feels like impending violence, obviously nobody here wants violence. Like we know that you guys don't want an incident to happen. We know that the teachers and the principals and the police don't want an incident to happen, right? Like none of us are saying like this will be great. But I think what the other people are saying is that if there's no plan, if there's no coordinated effort, we are going to be like these other schools. These other schools, they didn't want it either, right? They don't want to traumatize people. But if there's not a coordinated plan, if there's not information, it's going to happen. Like it feels inevitable at this point. If we move forward from today, it feels inevitable. The last thing I want to ask and say is about the identity of the student. We have no, I understand that the student's anonymity is proper, right? Like that needs to happen, I'm sorry. But going back to the way we all heard about something at the school, right? Like, if you're not gonna tell us the name of the student, like, shouldn't we know what's being written on the walls? Like, shouldn't we be informed about that so that we can have a conversation with my kid, right? So, like, my child told me that there was also anti-LGBTQ things in there. Like, those conversations between students and parents need to happen, but if we don't know what's happening, if you guys aren't telling us, like, what these students are doing and saying, again, I'm not asking for names, but if we don't get any substance, like, how can we be a part of this? If we don't have any substance and we're responding off of rumors and he said, she said, and all of those things, like, we are not part of this process. Like, I'm not able to parent if I can't talk to her about stuff that I don't know. Does that make sense? Okay. Yeah. Sorry, thank you for your time.
Hi, Liz Hart, 149 Ravine Avenue. Pardon my voice, I'm just coming over a little sinus infection. I appreciate you, Dr. Conklin, mentioning that there was some kind of discussion that happened today for the 6th and 7th graders. I did text my son, who is a 6th grade boy at GCMS, and he actually said that there wasn't anything. So I'm not saying that you're lying.
I'll follow up with the principal.
No, yeah, 100%.
I'm just reading right from my text message.
No, I believe you. But what I'm saying is that also that whatever the discussion was that was had, it was clearly not in the manner in which it should have been presented for the students to have received the message. Because my son and I have been talking about this since I got that first email from Mr. Bertolo. and he's a mess. And like, he was in the Shrek production, and we were so excited for this weekend, but after Saturday, he hasn't slept well, and he's a very well-adjusted child, and when he's asking me questions that I don't know what to tell him, and he doesn't want to go to school, he's asking me, are there, police gonna be there all the time? And I can't give him answers, and he knows I come to these meetings every time we have the Board of Ed meetings, and I promise him that I would come home to him and give him some answers. But unfortunately, I don't have any. And so he will be, I can just tell you right now, I'll report him absent on Monday the 13th. But he's like, why would somebody say the 13th? And then what if they do it on the 14th or the 15th or, the 12th or whatever the day is? And so it's really hard as a parent to try to answer these questions to, our children when we don't really have the answers. So if you could just, sorry, I just got a little emotional, but whatever the message is that's being delivered is not being delivered, unfortunately, in the way I think that it needs to be, because the children are not hearing it or taking it in as it needs to be taken. So thank you.
I'm Chelsea Resin, as I said before. I wasn't expecting to be up here, and this is a little bit rushed. I only expected to be speaking about, what had happened in the past month, but I guess this constitutes for that as well. I'm an 8th grader at GCMS, and I have been stuck directly in the center of all the rumors and lack of communication to members of the middle school community as a student. I had only heard of the incident through my mom, who heard from a Facebook post made by a different parent entirely, and then other ideas circling, other ideas or threats surrounding June 13th. I had only heard of those from my friends, who I don't even know what their source ultimately was. Additionally, the aforementioned threat wasn't communicated with my mom either, and I ended up being the one who told her. And as a student, I am scared for these next couple weeks. I was asked by my friend the other day if I was going to school on June 13th, and they said they were probably not going to go that day, presumably because of the reason I'm speaking of now. And I heard one teacher speak on this issue, which was today during my social studies class. It was very brief, and while I feel that this was a step in the right direction, it certainly was not enough. And I mean, in 6th grade, as it was mentioned before, we did learn about the Holocaust, but from what I've heard, this wasn't, I obviously don't know 100% anything, I only know rumors. From what I know, this wasn't a 6th grader who did this. I could be 100% incorrect about that, but that's what I have heard. But something more widespread that will reach a bigger audience must be said on this issue.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Steve Sandor. I live at 72 Forest Ave. I have a 6th grader at GCMS and a 2nd grader at Lincoln. I was also just wanted to attend tonight in support. I wasn't planning on speaking, but just a couple things that I want to put out in relation to all this, that to definitely support everyone who's been speaking. Thanking everyone directly who has spoken, because our community is only as strong as the voices that speak up. So credit to everyone that has come up and correctly brought this up as an item of concern. Directly what I want to address is that I had a couple people that have, in reaction to this, ask about, well, should we consider an SRO, a school resource officer, things like that. And what I really want to encourage the board to consider is looking at plans for prevention and really looking at the teams that we already have in place. We have amazing social workers at the middle school. We have social workers at the elementary school. My push is to say, what are we doing as a community, as a school board, to provide additional training, to not be reactionary, but to get ahead of this. Like the Be Nice training that we used to do for the elementary schools, like we've moved so far beyond that, and the world's moved beyond that. And to, again, be preventative. What are our social workers doing to reach out to kids, to bring kids in, right? Not just saying, hey, my office is open, because the social workers and the guidance counselors that we've dealt with, they're great. But when I hear, well, my office is always open, they're welcome to come in, I get it. But as someone who's been in education and been a professional educator for over 20 years, I've worked with guidance counselors and social workers who are really strong, who actually set up programs to bring kids in daily. They're identifying those kids that may seem on the fringe, that may be having difficulties, that maybe don't express themselves, that don't fit in. And what are we doing to have to support them in that? What kind of programming, training are we have for crisis intervention, crisis recognition? And what are we doing with our advisory programs so that it's not just a once a week, once every couple of weeks we're hitting this or being reactionary, but to actually get ahead? And I just would encourage you, take a look at what is the resources and supports and programming out there that we can build up the capacity of the amazing staff that we have. The teachers are the front line, and we see all this that they have to deal with, but we have professionals that we've hired, that we've paying, that we've tenured. I would ask that we look as a board to give them more. Tangentially, I want to give a huge shout out to Ms. Jamie Maraviglia and the Shrek team that did that, and the parents that were there. And I'm bringing that very directly in the context of this. My daughter participated in Shrek. She, who is someone that connects with different kids, but she's not your outgoing cheerleader type. She met so many friends through the play and through the program, and I would encourage the board also to look at what are our budget priorities, because you know that your budget reflects what your priorities are. Expanding, more funding, more programming for music, for arts programming, technology programming. This town is great with its sports. But when I have to pay extra, or when I'm told that my daughter may be able to go on, if there's room, to the Dorney Park trip, if there's room because of funding, I got a problem with that, right? When we have to shell out, and the parents that came out for Shrek that supported it on their own, they pulled that off, and that was so much a big part of them too. Shout out to those parent volunteers. But funding and support to expand these programs, these arts programs, because a lot of our friends that have difficulty, that may have mental health concerns, they're gonna get flagged by the teachers that are working with them. And the more programs and clubs and alternate activities beyond our sports programs that we can fund and build out, the more of a chance we have a catch to say, whoa, James is having a hard day today. He doesn't look right. Sarah is not her usual self. Let me pull her in for an extra. But if we don't have those opportunities for those kids to go beyond the classroom or beyond the sports field, please, I encourage you, look at the leadership, the support that's coming out in our music and arts programs, and funding and support for our social workers, because that's how we're going to get ahead of this and bring our kids all together. Thank you.
Awesome. Hi there, Terry Greenlee, 35, Woodrow Place. I have 3 children, 1 at the middle school in 6th grade, and 2 at Washington School in 4th and in kindergarten. And first and foremost, obviously, thank you to every single person in this room that is not only here for supporting our district, but who spoke tonight. I cannot say anything else that people said that was not just said beautifully. But I do have to say one thing, and I apologize if it's going to sound very ignorant, and I don't mean it to be, but I think it's wonderful that in the weeks ahead we will have, and I've seen them outside Washington, you know, the police in the morning, and we're talking about in the afternoon. In all of the readings that I've done and you know, in watching the news, these shootings are not happening and these acts of violence are not happening in the morning. They're not happening in the afternoon, you know, at pickup. They're happening during the day when there's been opportunities presented. And obviously it's scary for all of us. None of you are volunteering and working in districts because you don't care about children. You know, we know where your hearts are, but whatever we can do to think even what more we can do to not only keep our kids safe, but also really help with our teachers and our schools in general. I mean, the day after
the shooting in Texas, the way our teachers went out those doors and they had smiles and they greeted our children, but you knew when you talked to some of them how scared they were and how they had to address our children the next day and talk about keeping them safe. You know, they are the ones doing these drills with our children and putting them in bathrooms and locking them in storage units, you know, and all of these things that are, yes, wonderful, and we appreciate them, but, you know, we have to be all taking care of them as well. The mental health toll that puts on them is really scary. And also, this is something that I have asked for a number of years privately in the district, but I will just voice it here. The more as parents, too, that we can know when these drills are happening for our children, not that we need to know what is happening when these drills are going on, but the importance of knowing when a drill happens, especially a lockdown drill. This scares kids, you know, and if my kid's coming home at night and maybe acting out or seems a little sad or frustrated, whatever, and then as I'm digging, I find out, like, oh, I was hiding under my desk, or we were all in the bathroom and I had to be really quiet, you know, that's a great opportunity for me as a parent to be able to have these conversations about, number one, sadly, why we have to have them, but also to emphasize with them the importance of listening to their teachers during that time, that these aren't like a joke. It also, as a parent, gives me the opportunity as well to reach back out to the school to make sure the teachers and the school community as well understands that I'm not only a parent that supports them, but that I also feel for them. You know, they are taking care of my children. But anyway, I just want to say, whatever we can do to do more, especially if there is something with a police presence, because again, just as we know, these acts of violence are not happening when people are dropping off and picking up their children. They're happening during the day. So thank you.
Hello, Gregory Courtwright, 9 Irwin Place, Caldwell, New Jersey. I have a 6th grader, freshman, senior, and one who graduated in 2020. I have nothing to add. I have questions. I know you guys don't normally answer questions. You've heard a lot of information from these people and questions. What are your takeaways? Can you tell me what you're taking back with you when this meeting is over, and what we can expect back and when we can expect answers to these questions that are being asked?
I'm not really sure specifically questions. I have a bunch of comments I'd like to make at the end, and hopefully that answers most of the questions. I wrote down a lot of comments and some questions, and I would respond to them in general at the end. So if you have a question, I'm happy to.
Well, so the specific questions are, what are you doing to protect the kids over the next couple of weeks to the end of the school year? Specifically, I mean, you mentioned police presence in the morning and the afternoon, but obviously that's not going to be enough. And what else is being done? Obviously, I'm assuming the school district has some sort of plan in place from years prior and isn't making it up today. So you must have something somewhere in a folder that says, this is how we're going to protect our students going forward. This is what we're doing. This is how we're keeping them safe. Can you pull that out of a drawer and at least be able to provide that information to us? And if you don't have that, like it's been mentioned, have you gone to other districts and say, what do you guys do to keep your kids safe when there are threats made against a district that you need to take seriously? So are we sending our kids to school the next couple of days? Or are we keeping them home till the end of the year? Because we don't know what you guys are going to do. How are you keeping them safe? Because you know, and I feel for you guys, because if anything happens, it's on you. And granted, I don't want my kid getting hurt, but if any kid gets hurt, you guys are responsible. So what are you providing us back? What are your takeaways from this meeting? You have a lot of people that talked about a lot of information. They have a lot of questions for you. You're going to come back with what you think are the answers we want. But I mean, I don't know if that's going to be enough. So why don't you, I don't know, you know, there's not going to be enough, hopefully. But hopefully you do answer our questions. And if you don't, when will we have those answers if you can't answer them tonight? So that's what I'm asking.
Well, if I don't answer the questions tonight, if people can come back up to the podium and ask it again.
Okay.
Or you can send me an email if you want more details, and I might be able to provide you that, and I might not. I can't guarantee that. Some of the things that we do are confidential, because we don't share the day-to-day security plans in the schools, because then we'd be sharing it with the public, and that kind of defeats the purpose of keeping the plans confidential.
And I understand that. So the question would be, how can you ensure us that there is a plan and that it's being followed and that plan is
Well,
sufficient?
I'm sorry.
Without giving the
Mr.
plan.
Right. I think we're arguing about process right now, and I don't think that's what we need to be talking about right now. Dr. Conklin's a very process-oriented guy. He said he's got I don't know about answers, but he's got commentary. We've heard a lot of things.
Right.
So I think it might. Is there anyone else who wants to speak after Mr. Courtwright?
Can I make one more comment? Questions to the board?
Dan, I would
Just have to come back up to the podium.
Yeah. And Mr. Courtwright, you can obviously come back as well if you are not satisfied by whatever Dr. Conklin has to say. Okay.
Hi again. Jonathan Goodgold, 63 Orton Road. As I was speaking before, my daughter texted me. Dr. Conklin, you had mentioned that there was training. There was training today. My daughter said, in 7th grade, says, nope, there was nothing. Another child was texting their parent here, maybe 5 to 10 minutes in social studies. That is not training. So what is training that's going to be done? What is it? If it's a brief lip service for 5 or 10 minutes in class, that doesn't address the issues of hate, intolerance, and danger to our kids. So what is the training that's going to be done? And is it going to be a real training, or is it just going to be a passing reference in a social studies class?
Again, I don't know what training was done today. I'm just responding to the email.
You were the one who mentioned training.
Right. The text message.
You said there was going to be training.
There was training
so if you're
today
sitting here and telling us that, you know, there was training and you don't know what exactly was being done, you are lying to the public right now.
Sir,
My child's safety is at issue here.
Sir, please no accusation. He's not lying to the public.
He said there was training. There was none done.
Sir, he shared.
I think
Chris, he shared what he received, and he will look into the training issue. Okay. So please, just we appreciate your concerns. We have the same concerns. Okay, but we're trying to do our best here, and we will get back to you on the training.
Okay, then I would like to know what the training actually will be, if there's actually training.
And
if there's not going to be training, that's fine. Tell us now, and just tell us the truth. That's all I want to know.
There will be training, and we'll figure out what that training, or we'll find out and share what that training is. Any other questions before Conklin speaks?
So thank you. So the first thing I'd like to say is there is no direct threat to the school, despite what you may have seen on Facebook, or any general students at the school for June 13th or any other day. So despite what's been posted on social media and proliferated throughout all of Facebook, it's inaccurate. Based on the investigation, based on our communication with the police department, there is no credible threat for June 13th or any other day by a student coming to the school to do anyone harm. So if you could tell your children that is the reality of it, not what's been posted on Facebook. My letter today outlined the security plan that we do have in the district and have had for several years that discusses the specific details of that security plan. Obviously, the security plan is over 100 pages long, and it is confidential information that we have internally, so we know what we're supposed to do in case of any crisis. That way, that is for us to understand, so it's not shared with the public. But I did provide a summary today in my letter discussing how we're going to try to continue to make sure that schools are secure tomorrow during the voting, and that is common practice. The doors, outside doors are locked. There's only one entrance. People cannot enter the school unless they're allowed into the school through the system. We have cameras so we know who's asking, and we actually use our intercom to ask who they are and what business they have in the school. Otherwise, you cannot get into school. That was reinforced today with all the principals and the teachers and the students, so they don't unlock a door or open a door for someone they don't know. In addition to that, part of the administrative team has prioritized safety and security since I came and started this summer. We updated the safety security plans and created a procedural manual for crisis management. So there's a procedural manual that all the principals have that addresses any possible crisis that could arise throughout the school year, including terroristic threats, including intruders on the campus, including student violence towards each other, suicide or suicide ideations, the untimely passing of a staff member or a student. All of that is addressed in the crisis manual. So that is shared with the principals. They go to that manual to make sure they communicate well to the public. So this was not communicated well to the public, and we continue to try to straighten out that communication. I can't reiterate more to the community that there is no credible threat on June 13th or any other day, despite what may be going around again social media. In December and January, we began the process for evaluating the existing infrastructure in all the buildings. That includes the cameras, door entries, the swipe systems. We are in the process of getting bids to update all the cameras, internally and externally, in all of the buildings throughout Caldwell-West Caldwell, all 7 schools, in addition to the point of entry, the swipe card. So there will only be one entrance, and the swipe card entries will be updated to ensure that we can have timestamps on who's coming in and who's going out through the school. And we are in constant communication with the police when these instances occur, and we do ask them for additional rounds. Obviously, they have limited ability to be in the schools all day. We don't have armed officers to be able to patrol the schools all day, but in these situations, we do ask them for additional time to come throughout the schools, and I'm sure I'll ask Mr. Bertolo again tomorrow to reach out to them to see if we can have additional time at the middle school throughout the month of June. There are, obviously, I understand that parents are concerned and don't feel today's training was enough. I'm not sure what that training was. I can't speak to that training. I only have a brief text message that say 6th and 7th grade received training. I can assure you tomorrow I'll be in contact with Mr. Bertolo, and we will arrange for a more comprehensive training that addresses the concerns about anti-Semitism and community acceptance. So I will talk to him tomorrow, and we will find someone that will come into the school to do that for all grade levels.
Chris,
I
can you
think I
share?
answered a lot of the questions.
Dr. Conklin, can you share the process, or once this happens, a situation like this happens, what the steps are?
So the crisis manual outlines this specifically. So what would happen is the principal would become aware of an incident in the school, evaluate that incident in the school, and make a determination on whether or not police should be contacted or involved. They contact the superintendent's office or the assistant superintendent's office. They may contact the school security specialist, which is one or both of those individuals, and then a plan of action is kind of developed along those lines. And then, depending on the severity of the situation, generalized student discipline, police investigation. As soon as the police are involved, then the district has to take a back seat and just share information because they can't be in charge of the investigation. And then they kind of run concomitant with each other, and that the school would provide specific discipline or supports or interventions while the police continue their legal investigation.
And this current situation is the police have gotten back to the district, or is it still
the police are still investigating the situation, but we do know, as I said before, that there is no credible threat to the students or the staff at the middle school.
Thank you. If there are any follow-up questions, please come up.
Yes, I'm sorry. Thank you for that. Eva Kaplan again, 138 Ravine Avenue. I'm a little confused because the June 13th thing came from the Genesis that we all get as parents. I'll read it exactly what it was said. Dear GCMS community, it was brought to my attention on June 3rd that a student made claims of a threat to the school on June 13th. I immediately contacted the Caldwell-West Caldwell Police Department, and they addressed the matter. As always, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. So this wasn't from Facebook that we're all getting this?
The reason that was sent out is because of the Facebook postings that were saying that someone's going to come to the school and do shoot up the school. I don't remember this exact language.
Right, but it says a student made claims. So it didn't say I'm responding to Facebook. It said it's brought to my attention that a student made claims of a threat to the school on June 13th.
Right.
It's not. It's brought to my attention that there's rumors that this
Well,
could
they
occur.
weren't rumors at that point.
But you see what I'm saying? Like it said, this is saying.
I understand.
Yeah.
But at that point, they weren't rumors. They were, someone reported that a student made claims. So
okay.
In the spirit of contacting the parents so they would be aware, they said, this is what we're hearing right now. Once the investigation was finalized today, it's not a credible threat.
Then you mentioned an email with the plans laid out of exactly, what the protocol would be for protection. Did that go out to parents? Because I only got the COVID email today.
No, there was a letter that went out this afternoon that talked about the voting and what the plan is for voting, and then attached to that was the letter that went out in October for what the generalized safety security plan is.
Got it, okay. And I do think, my daughter's also in 7th grade, did mention the social studies conversation today. I agree with everyone here that there's while I applaud any effort that happens, there's a difference between a few minutes in social studies and sitting as a whole school where you have an assembly, which I understand, I don't know if it's a COVID thing or this or the other, but that does need to happen because these kids are scared. They're really scared. And especially the kids who are in the Jewish community or in the LGBT community. For my child to have to go to a school and see a swastika, hear of a swastika painted in a bathroom, I just really never thought that would happen in this town, and I think that beyond assuaging us as parents, I think we need to really think more about having the students together as a community and having a conversation instead of just addressing it in each class. Thank you.
Tanya Costa, 14 Aldham Circle. Just have 2 follow-up questions. You guys mentioned, the teachers were spoken to, students were spoken to about making sure the doors were locked and everything was taken care of. Is there a second level of security, somebody going around confirming that everything is actually locked after the kids have entered the building? There's got to be somebody to verify that everything has been locked.
The administrators, custodians always check the doors around the buildings to make sure they're not locked, they're locked and not propped open.
Okay. And that gets checked throughout the day?
Every day.
Okay.
Throughout the day.
And then I'm really hoping that some sort of assembly or training or something does happen. I just ask that whatever you guys decide to do, can you please just include the parents in that information so that we have the opportunity to know what's being taught to our children and we can reinforce it at home. This is a community thing, and we need to teach this to our kids, and a majority of our parents want to be involved in this.
I actually wrote it down on my little note sheet here, possible assembly. We actually had someone just recently that did some training about the Holocaust that came to the district. We might reach out to them and see if they know anybody that did that. So if any of if you heard any of the presentation that the students had, we're going to reach out to that same group, see if they can either do it or recommend someone who can.
Great. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Joe Pagano, 71 Park Ave, kids in Washington and middle school. Just one question, you keep on saying credible. Was there a threat? Because you make me feel great now, because now it feels like, well, what was all this big halloo about other than the anti-Semitic stuff, which is really like a potential violent thing that could happen. Because that means that these kids somebody feels empowered, right?
There was no school-wide threat.
Okay, but there was a threat. Let's start there. You don't want to say that either?
I can't say that there was a credible threat. I can't.
So then, like I said before, in the absence of knowledge, I'm going to make it up. There was a threat. Thank you.
I didn't say that.
I know you didn't. I did. Thank you.
Just Steve Sandor, 72 Forest Ave. Just a couple quick follow-up. First, with everything going on, I do want to give a shout out to the office staff at the middle school, because a couple times I've tried to come pick up my daughter. They're like, you can stand right outside. You know, they're very good with following the protocols and the physical security. And I do trust, and again, as an educator, I'm familiar with the management plans and all those in place for the physical infrastructure is there. So I appreciate and applaud that you've been taking the steps to update it. My one follow-up question is the part with the crisis intervention plan when it comes to tolerance of hate speech, whether it's anti-Semitic, it's anti-LGBTQ, it's just the follow-up there. I was very disturbed to hear that the comment that another parent came up that the response to someone making a comment like that was to write an apology letter. So I would just ask that the district, when you're looking at the evaluations of plans, look at, for the principals, for the vice principals, there should be a checklist that when something happens, it triggers. Mr. Bertolo should not be having to kind of figure this out, what kind of letter he's sending. He should have a checklist of, I got this response, and if there is, I apologize. But if there is, maybe it needs to be updated so that it is a bit more modern with the times that we're living in, that if this type of language comes in through a teacher, through a guidance counselor, through another student, because when I'm hearing things from my daughter, some of the stuff that's being said in some of the classes, that is homophobic, racist, some of these other things, and she's like, well, everyone, some of it's jokes and some people are just dealing with it. That to me is not okay, and we really should, as a district and as a town, that we have these signs, like hate has no home here. Our schools should not be a home or haven for hate. We should have a zero tolerance policy and a very clear structure of what are the consequences, what are the steps for the staff to take when something like this comes across. And I get it, working in a school, middle school, I know some of the kids are running their mouth off, but what is the policy for all the people involved on what steps do they take, what's the follow-up, what's the communication to the families, what's the communication to the teachers, so they know there was follow-up, and how that's processed. So I would ask, again, the board look at those policies and look at what that type of, I guess, the psychological crisis plan, and see if that needs to be updated. Thanks.
Any other questions or comments? We appreciate you guys coming out tonight. We share a lot of what you're saying. I can only say, unfortunately, not much can be said about an ongoing investigation. But what I can say is Dr. Conklin and his staff are working very diligently to come up with this. I think there are a lot of great suggestions. The assembly, we've heard multiple times. Dr. Conklin has written it down. There's some sidebars going on here about who may be appropriate to come speak. So we are going to be going into an executive session in a second, and I'm sure we will be speaking about that. So all I could say is, again, we've heard you. We understand. We live in this community as well. It is a community-wide thing. Unfortunately, it is a lot about parents and what they teach at home, and what you say at home. So we have to do this together. But what I can say from a board's perspective, I think speaking for the board, we are taking this very, very seriously. And we do have a zero tolerance policy. But what I also heard is there's times where that was quite honestly violated and probably wasn't acted upon. And that's not acceptable to any of us sitting up here, right? So if there are no additional questions, we're going to call this meeting to a close. We will be entering executive session. The purpose of that meeting will be to discuss personnel, litigation, miscellaneous, and old business matters. That meeting has been advertised and is compliant with the Open Public Meeting Act and NJSA 10:4-6, which is also known as the Sunshine Law. The matters discussed will be made public when confidentiality is no longer required, and formal action pursuant to said discussion shall take place only at a meeting to which the public has been invited. Do I have a motion to enter executive session?
I'll make the motion.
Have a second?
Second.
Motion has been made by Ms. Grosso and second by Ms. Getty. Upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Caldwell-West Caldwell Board of Education shall enter executive session at approximately 8:20 p.m. Brian, take the vote, please.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Against? Nays? Abstentions? Motion carried.
Appreciate everybody coming out.
Thank you. Thank you.